We are now just 11 days away until the election, and two heavy hitters are zeroing in on Georgia today. The Peach State now considered a battleground in the race for president, with many polls showing President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden in a statistical dead heat. For the first time since winning the Democratic nomination for vice president, Senator Kamala Harris is here in the metro campaigning, her plane landing in Atlanta just moments ago.
It's important in terms of, the people of Georgia deserve to have a president who sees them, who cares about them. Georgia has been so hard hit by the pandemic. You're looking at, almost half, nationally, almost half of black businesses will be permanently closed because of the failure of this administration to address the pandemic. We're looking at Atlanta, which has a very significant black community, and 1 in 1,000 black people in America have died because of this pandemic. It is predicted that as many as 1 in 500 by the end of the year.
Her visit coming exactly 1 week to the day when Georgia Senator David Perdue, a Republican up for re-election, mocked her name during President Trump's rally in Macon.
Kamala, I don't know. Whatever.
This moment quickly going viral. Senator Perdue immediately called out by his challenger, Democrat Jon Ossoff, who tweeted, "We're so much better than this." A spokesman for Perdue says the senator simply mispronounced Senator Harris's name and didn't mean anything by it. As for her schedule today, we know Senator Harris has a couple events planned, one this afternoon and an early voting mobilization event in Atlanta this evening. The specifics of where she'll be and at what time are not being made public. And in just 2 hours, the president's oldest son, Donald Trump Jr., will be stumping in the Peach State. Trump Jr. expected to attend two Make America Great Again events at the Westin Perimeter Hotel at around 1:30 p.m. and the Point in Macon at 4 p.m. Trump Jr. just made a campaign swing through Georgia for his father last week, headlining a campaign rally in Cobb County.